Hi, welcome to Leap Taken. This is Mika. Here at Leap Taken, I talk about all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. Today, I want to talk a little bit about shadow work. So I wanted to spread out. So I'm at my dining room table and slash office area. And I have some tools here to sort of demonstrate, walk you through the process a little bit. I'm gonna do a part two to this, so this is kind of just like an overview to introduce you to the topic of shadow work and doing a shadow work ritual or exercises or putting into practice. So bear with me. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying this. This is my interpretation. This is how I do things. I am somebody who I like to research. I looked into other resources, multiple resources, including YouTube, yes, with other witches. But I also read some books. I also, not to toot my horn, but took a little psychology course when I was in college. So some of that's kind of in the back of my head. But more importantly, I have a desire and a will to understand and to learn, and I'm curious. And to me, that's enough. That's the great foundation to learn anything. So, in another video, I did talk about how I did a shadow ritual or shadow self ritual to sort of address some hangups and some blockages and things like that that I have been experiencing within a relationship. And it was, again, nothing is just one thing. So it was sort of relating to other aspects as far as even my spirituality. So I don't want to say, oh, it's resolved and I'm done with it. I think I might have alluded to that in another video, like, oh, so yeah, I fixed it and I'm resolved. Not quite, not quite. But I'm aware, and I know when I'm dealing with shadow self and all that comes with that versus, my higher self. Okay? So this shadow work and all that sort of stuff, where does that come from? If you don't know, there's a Swiss psychiatrist named Carl Gustav Jung. I don't know if you're not supposed to pronounce the J. We're going to say the J in this video, Jung. So anyway, he was a student of Sigmund Freud. He believed that the shadow is the non-conscious aspect of human psyche, or the shadow self is the non-conscious aspect of the human psyche. So a lot of times you're not even aware. It's not like you're consciously executing, your shadow self. It doesn't, not necessarily. There's a way to integrate that more in part two of this video, but anyway. So the shadow self is usually that part that contains repressed thoughts and impulses. Yes, this is kind of negative. So I don't want to say, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, don't be afraid. No, depending on where your headspace is, you should be a little afraid. Some of us have really depraved thoughts. Things that we may not act on it, but it's coming from somewhere, and might want to hurt people, innocent people, children, animals. I mean, here's the thing: people have that part of those thoughts come up, they pop up, they like bubble up from you. Like, where did that come from? And it's not like you consider yourself the person who would even think like that. Yet those thoughts pop into your head. Anyway, the other thing he says is that fear is part of our minds in most cases, or the fear part of our minds in most cases, and other uncomfortable emotions that we're consciously rejecting for some reason, that represents the shadow self. And his own words exactly says, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. So basically, more repressed the person is, the more denser and darker their shadow self is. So got that out the way to kind of give you an idea of why people are talking about this, where this comes from, blah blah blah. It comes from this guy. That's who originated, and it's been examined, applied, written about, observed in different ways. But that's sort of the foundation from where we got the shadow work from. It's it's, if you talk to a religious person, they might say it's the demon within you, that part of you, the good angel, the bad angel. Maybe that's the bad angel, except there's no level of consciousness with that one. It's more of an unconscious self. So you think you're always with the good angel, but the bad angel's there. I don't subscribe to that thought process, but I'm just trying to explain this in a way that maybe makes a little bit more sense. I am not in any way someone who majored in psychology or ever wanted to. What I am is someone who wanted to understand what was driving certain behaviors. When my outward self, my conscious self, was very clear and was sure that I wanted to do certain things, or be in a certain relationship, or engage in certain behaviors, or whatever it was. I was very clear on that. It felt right. I didn't see a problem with it, but there was obviously something else going on within myself, because when times would arrive to either, have an experience of the things I claim I wanted, I had such a very negative reaction. It just didn't add up. It just didn't make sense. If you were around me, and you would be very confused. Well, I thought that's what you wanted. And I would say, yeah, that is what I want. So why is it that you're upset, or whenever you have an opportunity to have it, you don't want it? Anyway. But I'll get more into better examples. I'm being a little vague here. I don't want to give all my business away on YouTube anyway. But I do have other examples that are more I can share freely, and I feel comfortable, even though they're kind of peeling back the surface a little bit of who I am. I don't mind though. That. So shadow work. So I've got a bunch of stuff here, and hopefully you can see some of this. This piece of paper here is just my notes, so I can stay on task. So the first thing I would want to do, if I was starting a ritual to even begin a high level approach to this, is I'm going to find a quiet time, preferably, a little bit on a darker side. It's cloudy here where I'm at now, which is great. So I'm going to light this candle. It's black. It has, I used frankincense and a little bit of clove. The clove was for grounding. Oil, and as well as the frankincense, all of those are grounding oils that I use, and I anointed the oil with that, cleaned it up and anointed it with that. So this is a black candle that I'm using, which I think makes sense for the occasion and what we're doing here. So basically my intention as this candle burns, so does my realization to be more in touch with my shadow self, so does my understanding of where and why and when my shadow self developed. As this candle burns, there will be peace. There will be an understanding. There will be more knowledge, and all for my higher self and for my greater good. So motivate. Okay? So, something like that. Now I'm just going to light this incense here. This is a rose. Let me see if I got it now. This is a rose scented incense, and to me, this is all about self-love. And this is just to me, roses represent love. For most people, I think it does go that way. Anyway, so this is basically just kind of a self-love type of ritual. I just want that type of energy. Once I get it lit, there we go. Now we're smoking. Anyway, so I kind of just want to get that going, and I'm gonna move this out the way because this is gonna get a lot, but I want it in the air of just that pleasant rose scent. Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to have that in the air because it's grounding, and it I think it's a positive thing to have that, and that's what it represents to me. It's clean for me. It also smells clean, like clean soap, and to me, it's kind of like I'm, cleaning out, the cobwebs, so to speak, of my mind and my psyche, and getting in touch with all that. So those scents, that's what that means to me. So find yours. So that's first part, some of the props. I also have a crystal ball here, where This is great for kind of just going into a release state of kind of just releasing from, the mundane. I can do some work, meditative work with this. Not so much of divination, although if something pops up, that's great. I can also use it for that purpose as well. But that's just why I have that here. I have a notebook here as well. It's a happy planner notebook. It's one of those covers. Anyway, but I have a notebook. I'm ready to go to write down, um, you know, all of anything that comes up, any questions and, answers and so forth. I have that ready to go right here. All right. I have my tarot cards because I, trust me, you want tarot cards. If you don't read them, maybe get some oracle cards, but yeah, get some tarot cards and get acquainted with that because this is the perfect time. I also have my wand. This wand is basically what I use in with my tarot cards. I usually shuffle my deck and then I tap 3 times. That's sort of the signifier. It's the door is open to receive knowledge, to receive information, and I can do my reading at that point. So that's pretty much and a pen. So that's kind of what I have going on here. That conjunction with everything I'm about to talk about. So the first step is you have to be self-aware. In order to do any sort of shadow work, which I'm going to get to the specifics of that in just a moment, before we talk about peeling back layers and delving into our own psyche, this is not for someone to do to you. You can't pay someone for this. You can pay someone for a tool to use, but you have to do this part. Someone can't do this for you. So the first step is to be self-aware. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be very open, very conscious on how you feel physically. How are you feeling? Because tension and pain and just sensitivity in the body can be very telling of our emotions and how we feel about things. So you have to be in tune with that. You can't be someone who just pops a pill at the first sign of any sort of pain, and you're trying to do this. At least you're going to, maybe pump the brakes on that while you're trying to work on this, because you're you don't. We're not trying to numb or dull anything. We're trying to just let it out right now. So this is, something you need to be aware of, not just how you feel emotions, but physically how you're feeling as well. Or did you become very thirsty all of a sudden? All of a sudden, did you become hungry? Is your hand for some reason hurting and you're not even writing anything yet? Is your leg restless? Like you doing that tapping thing? The tap tap tap. Where you kind of keep tapping on the floor. Are you having some sort of reaction where you're doing that? Are you blinking a lot? Is your lower back all of a sudden just, I don't know? It's hard to sit. And you just got to stand up. A lot of times, those are just actual, really physical ways our body doesn't want to deal. Or mentally, we don't want to deal with it, and it's so strong. Physically, our body is saying, "Get up, get away from this. We don't want to do it." Be mindful of that because you're probably on the surface of something, and you just need to go a little bit deeper and fight through that. Yes, doing this type of work is uncomfortable. I would not say it was fun. And it doesn't end in I'm all fixed. So, just wanted to say that. Another thing is, are you constantly being told something negative about yourself? I'm just getting into, leading up to all of this. So, if you're constantly being told something negative about yourself, meaning people always say, "Oh my God, you're never smiling. You're always so angry." You're like, "No, I'm not. I'm happy all the time." Oh, that's just my resting bitch face. We need to get past that, guys. Just saying. Okay. If you're in relationships and people telling you, you're a pushover, oh my God, you're all, it doesn't have to be something on the surface negative. Somebody can say, oh, you're so easy, it's so easy with you. Meanwhile, you feel like this person is totally disrespectful to you. They're not getting who you are, and you don't understand why they keep saying you're so easy when you really want to scream, but you don't. Think about the good things about yourself, the positive things about yourself, and also maybe the not so great things, your strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. This is the time we're going to kind of go into that. We're going to you're going to want to delve into that, not just your strengths. We do want to talk about the positive, the strengths, the good, and all that, but we're going to definitely explore that darker side, and that's okay. That's the whole point. Now, um, I do want to. I got a quote here from Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart, yeah, Eckhart. Is it Eckhart? Eckhart? I struggle. I can read well, I can spell, but speaking the words out loud, unless I hear it, I don't know. But I think it's Eckhart Tolle. He used to be on Oprah a lot back in the day, but he's an author, in really more into the esoteric and psychology. But anyway, his quote says, "Awareness is the greatest agent of change." Awareness is the greatest agent of change. You have to be aware. We have to be aware of ourselves. Um, okay, so the next thing is, yeah, the shadow work. So I'm just gonna, yeah, the shadow work explores our shadow self or our inner dark self. It's part of the unconscious mind. It holds our shame, fear, repressed thoughts, and feelings of lack. The shadow self can begin when we are children, but not necessarily. It exists as a result of keeping a facade of likability or seem normal or together to society. So, um, just hopefully you got that, but I'll break it down a little bit further. And I like to give an example for this. So, we're taught. Let's go down the repression part of it. Okay, so you say you want. Sorry, my phone is going off. You say you want to be, in a committed relationship, and let's say you met somebody, you're living together, you're engaged, or you're getting married, whatever it is. When it comes time, everything's great. You dress in the right way. You look feminine. You have the right tone of voice. Your hair is always together. Your makeup's together. You can make a nice meal. You have a nice home. This person is enchanted with you. When it comes time for the physical connection, the sexual connection, that's where there's an issue. You understand that sex is a part of the relationship, with this person. There's an expectation. You completely are on board with it. You say that. You buy sexy things, feminine sexy things. You say all the right things to this person. When it comes time to have sex, there is no connection really going on. You're more of a vessel, and you're there for their pleasure. That's what you're doing because this is necessary. You you're at the stage where you feel like this is sex. This is how it works. This is, almost like a duty. But you enjoy it. I mean, you like this stuff. So yeah, it feels good. It's good. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's good. That's how you are. You might not vocalize this to anybody, but that's what you're thinking. Yeah, it's good. It's good. You don't really, give too much. Now, here's the thing about that. Your partner, this person that you're committing to, is constantly, trying to pull you up because people are perceptive, and when they realize you're kind of holding back a little bit, they never, they always initiate. You don't say no, but you don't really seem all in, if you know what I'm saying. You're doing what's required. This is one of those things. There's looking at it on the surface. I think most of us will see, okay, he or she, the person I'm describing, there's some repression going on. There's something going on. Now, awareness of you understanding this about yourself would be maybe probably after maybe, or trying to have sex with that person and they want to do something new, something really out there. And, whatever out there is, because, we all got different, meter, levels on the freakometer, but I don't know. We're going to say, I got to give context. So we're going to say they want to do BDSM, right? BDSM, but they don't just want to do it in the comforts of their home. They want to go to like some sort of sex club and a dungeon and that type of thing. Really out of this person's comfort zone. Remember, this is somebody who wants the partner. They like the person. They want this life together with this person, and they like them. They respect them. All that sort of stuff. But when it comes to this sex piece, the sexual chemistry and connection, they're not really even aware or woke. They're kind of just like walking through the process, phoning it in, so to speak. So, to push somebody like that out of their comfort zone, again, they want to be pleasing, so they go. They do not want to do this. The person, their partner, doesn't know to the degree that they don't want to do this. Remember, some people, you can see apprehension in them, and it's like, oh, they just got to get used to it. Don't see, you don't, because you're not being clear. So you go through this whole freaking process, you go through it, and you are not getting enjoyment out of it. You're going through this, you're committing to this person, you can feel like you're kind of dying inside a little bit dealing with something like this. And I needed a wild example to kind of bring you guys in, if you're watching this, to really make it make sense. And you can tone this down to fit parts of your life, but we're talking repression. So in that moment, when I'm not going to have, let's say, our person being hit. Let's say she needs to be whipping somebody or taking a paddle or something, and this is something she really doesn't want to do, but she's doing it. And after maybe the first hit, the first paddle, she realizes that I need to speak up. This is ridiculous. I don't want to do this. There are things I'm willing to do that I might be interested, but this is not it. What have I done? I have to say something. That's a moment of kind of coming into it. It's oh, ideally you don't want to get all the way into something and then come to a realization. What am I doing? This is not me. Why am I doing this? So here's where the shadow work will come in for that person. So you walk away from that experience, and you're like, I got a problem. Why did I let it go that far? I'm a confident person. I know I don't understand what's happening with me. That was so. It's not about being out of my comfort zone. That's not something I'm even remotely interested in. It doesn't turn me on. I don't get any satisfaction out of it at all. And come to think of it, I'm not getting much satisfaction out of anything sexual. What's going on with me? So with that sort of situation, that's a great time to introduce shadow work, okay? And here's why. So what we're gonna do at this stage is we're gonna light our candles here, we're gonna get all our tools out, and we're gonna get our notebook. And for someone like that, prompts will probably be best. And the type of prompting you want is, we're gonna do some deep dive exploration on what's your first sexual memory. We're gonna play therapist to ourselves. Here's where it gets even deeper. Not just ourselves. Initially, it's like, oh, I'm just answering my questions, my, conscious self. But the more questions and the deeper the answers get, we'll start to now get to our shadow self. And that shadow self is probably holding on to something. Whether, and listen, it doesn't have to always be sexual abuse. It could have really been maybe just too early exposure to sex altogether. Not an abusive way. Maybe you were a curious person and you saw people having sex, but it grossed you out. It grossed you out, that sort of thing. And you shoved that down, and then on top of that, maybe, there was some guys you saw, they were looking in the window of a neighbor's house watching her in dress. That grossed you out. And then, in your 20s, that boyfriend who was way too into porn, it's not like you went off about it, or, it was your cause to champion, against this sort of stuff. It grosses you out. And you just let that sort of stay there. You never really dealt with any of it. It just, oh, that's gross. And you just let it sit. But it's been building. I am so sorry. My phone is just going off. Anyway, it's building. So guess what? You have now given a nice foundation for your shadow self, which is, we all have it, but you're giving it, those repressed thoughts. You're building from that point. Okay, so early childhood, earliest memory of a sexual encounter, whether it's yourself or in general, that you became aware of a sexual act or witnessed it, or it just had some sort of experience around it. So you write that down. Yeah, I remember, I walked in on, my uncle or somebody, plowing into this girl. I was freaked out by it. He didn't know I saw him. I never told anybody, and I just let that sit. And I was really young, and I didn't know what to do with that, that sort of thing. So you go from that point, and we'll dig a little bit deeper, and we'll understand those other examples I gave about the other times you've had these with the opposite sex. You've really just been grossed out about sex, but you understand that's part of relationships that you're having. There's an expectation, so you're going along with it. And then, I would, the next set of questions is, what about your actual first time having sex? How was that experience? There are some people who just haven't had the greatest experiences. Nothing violent, just not great experiences. Maybe not the, most giving type of lover or something like that. So let's say this person did not have that in their first sexual experience. So it sort of set the tone. The other stuff that this is, it's on a number on the shadow self, whole all this, all of this here. So just confronting that, being aware and confronting it is a huge step. Remember, this example I'm giving is somebody who's sort of been going along in life and never really dealing with any of this stuff. And it by not dealing with it, they're in having an unfulfilled sexual relationship with someone they actually really care about. So out goes the whole conversation of, oh, well, if you really love it, sex is better. It doesn't matter if you love them or not. You're not even really involved. All of you is not totally engaged in it because there's something not letting you be totally engaged. So now, the next thing you want to understand, why am I just doing it then? Why won't I speak up? Why won't I find the part of sex that doesn't gross me out? Why am I afraid to let my sexual partners know this about myself? That I'm having a hard time warming up, or why haven't I admitted it to myself? That's the other thing I would want to explore. And guess what? The reason you would probably go into that is, the reason we say shadow self is because that's the hidden part. So the part where you want to be accepted, remember I kept saying it's expected in a relationship. You have this ideal in your head of what relationships mean, and it's to fit into a relationship, you have to act like you want sex or are willing to have sex. So you're playing nice, you're being nice. That's what that is. So, that's what's really going on. You're putting up a facade about what it is you like and what you don't like. The other thing in this kind of example is what that person would do next is, obviously they would have wrote down everything in their journal here, and the next stage in that process is two ways you could go about using, well, not two, but here's two ways I would go about using these tarot cards. I would either go and pick out court cards, something that represents myself, of where I currently feel I'm at now, as it relates to everything we're working on, this repression and so forth. I would find that card, place that here. Then I would probably think on it. Look at that card, really think on it. Why did I pick this card? How does this represent me as far as sex and so forth? Like, what does that mean that I even picked that particular card? Journal about that. Listen, if you're not a journaler, draw a picture, write something down, scribble just words. Something that is important to you. It doesn't have to be paragraphs neatly spaced and all that sort of stuff. It has to make sense to you. The other way is you can actually just do a reading for yourself. You would do a reading where basically I would just do a 3-card spread, and to just have a better understanding of where I'm at now. Okay? So where I'm at now, and where, past, present, future. So 3 cards. So where I'm at now is in the middle. The past of what kind of got me here, and then possible outcome if I continue the way I'm going. So this isn't like, the future card is not necessarily, oh, everything's going to be rosy or everything's going to be horrible. It's more about, on this path that I'm on now, what is the possible outcome? What, with the way I feel and my shadow self and all of this sort of stuff, what is that going to look like? So that's what your spread could be. And of course you would write all this down. So again, it would be just taking the time to explore that. So let's say you go that far. We can go a lot further with this, but that's as far as this person would get with us, right? So we've got our person, our example person. We're going to give her a name. We're going to call her June. I don't know why. We're going to call her June. So June is coming into herself. She's taken the opportunity to really think about it, and she wants to meditate on this. So she looks in her case, a crystal ball, and she's just sort of, going into a trance, really releasing. And the more she stares, she sees images. These images mean something to her, shapes, maybe even letters or symbols. And they all mean something to her, something that's sexy. She might see an S and it makes her think sexy, which then makes her think snake, because the way the S sound goes out, as her mind goes on, it's like snakes are so deceptive. They're sneaky, and then sneaky's the next thing, and sneaky, yeah, like that time you were sneaking around and looking at your uncle, having sex, and so sneaky, you're so sneaky. And oh, that's another layer I didn't even think about. June would say, I didn't even think about that. I'm sneaky, you know. Is that part of your shadow? That your shadow self is holding on to that because part of you are saying, because you were being sneaky, you deserve to see what you saw. You deserve to be disturbed by that because you shouldn't have been sneaking around. That's what you're saying. So you had to write that down, and you go from there. So we're going to fast forward this. You do all this work, you're meditating on it, have some good herbal tea, and if you really want to, some wine to sort of process everything. You might read over everything and kind of just sit there. So, you're done with it, you blow the candle out, so it is done. The incense is burned. Now what? What do I do now? I've really dug deep. I didn't even think about this sort of stuff. Am I crazy? So all this time I've been having these repressed thoughts about sex. I thought I was actually enjoying it. If you could ask June 50 million times, she would say, I'm enjoying sex, I'm enjoying it. But she hasn't actually felt really pleasure. So now that she's begun her process of doing shadow work, she's aware of her shadow self. The shadow self, the goal is not to kill shadow self. It's to integrate it because it's already there. Those events happen. So how do we integrate? How do we do this? All right. So in June's example, June is now aware more than ever her lack of pleasure. It's not her partner's fault or necessarily 100% their responsibility. So she's got to learn to pleasure herself or even recognize pleasure without shame, without, fear and everything else. All the negative things that sort of been in us she never dealt with or being gross. So, in June's case, I would say find a sex therapist. Take this a step further. Maybe get some outside help. Find a sex therapist. Work with someone. If you're not willing to go that far into it, I would do something like belly dancing classes. Something where you're really getting in touch with the sacral chakra, and you're moving your body and you're sensual. If you don't want to do belly dancing, I would say yoga, but it would have to be a very specific type of yoga. Again, because it's all about movement, body. This is a very physical thing that June would have to be working on. So some dance comes to mind. If not, go to a twerk class, pole dancing class, anything where it's a sex portion of it. It's passionate, June would need to go there. She would need to this is not something she can read a book and find her way out of. She can, but this is a physical thing. So we got to get June going. June's got to do that. Okay, so let's say she's taking a belly dancing class. That's what she decided to go with. And she's already someone who's been buying sexy underwear and things like that for her partner because that's expected of her. But she needs to be able to wear these things for herself. So she's gonna go and look at things that she likes. What does she like? Now she might learn a little bit something about herself. Well, what if I don't like any of the things that I've been buying? What if she likes something a little bit more edgier? And all this time she's been getting lacy and cute and frilly, and she wants leather. Who knows? So June discovers more. It's a process. She'll discover more. She'll have setbacks. She'll be doing all this, but it's time to have sex again, and she's still not feeling like really great pleasure. And now she's got a question: is it the guy? Is it him? Is it me? What is it? But I've never even experienced this thing I'm supposed to be experiencing. So what is it really? That's what I'm talking about, setbacks. So she'll have to go back. I would say give yourself another reading. Maybe do a one card reading to just get an overall understanding of where you are now. I would journal about that. Ask a very direct question. The question that June would be asking in that one card reading would be something like, what energy do I need to focus on as far as sex, for pleasure? Where can I derive that energy from? Let's say she put like the Empress or the Emperor card, the Emperor, sex, carnal, and it's like basically tap into your carnal energy. It's okay, let it out, let it out. Don't, you're going to have to manage shadow self, and you're going to integrate that memory is there. That's not there. We're not denying it, we're not repressing it. We're letting that rise up to the surface now. We know what we saw, and guess what, maybe June gets a little turned on by that memory. Even, as an adult now, she's looking back like, oh, that was gross. And let's say she's thinking about it. Let's say those are sexual positions she avoids just because she saw it. See how deep this can get? Man, you break this thing open. June, our example, June would be journaling about this. This would be something she's been working on probably for some time. At least weeks. She has a full life. She doesn't have time to sit and only do this. I said she only does this in the evenings, twice a week. But she's discovering something more. She goes easy on herself. After every shadow ritual, she takes a nice cleansing bath. She puts certain herbs in here, spiritual bath, if you will, so that she is the incense getting to me, so that she feels cleansed, feels whole, and feels safe. Excuse me, let me get this water. I ate right before I started this, and it was spicy. That was a mistake. Anyway, so our example, she would just continue going forward. Ultimately, this is her journey, and she would still be working on it. Excuse me, guys. She would still be working on this. And, yeah. It would just, that's pretty much how shadow work can go. For me, I've also used shadow work for dealing with having a poverty mindset. I've done shadow work for understanding blockages in magic, why spells aren't working, why I don't believe certain concepts of what I profess to believe. Whether it's, for me, the concept of the deity, this is a while back I did this, the concept of even ancestors, and just the spiritual realm, all of that. So these are other ways you could approach, use shadow work to approach that, to understand why can't you do that. And for some of us, it's probably going to be more fear, more than repression. But hopefully you kind of stayed with me with this example with our character here, June. I just want to point out the reasons the shadow self shouldn't be overlooked. Outside of our example here. So, the result of overlooking your shadow self is maybe fixation on certain situations. Some of us kind of really get hung up on stuff. Excuse me. And the other thing is manipulation. Always wanting to do certain type of working. So, like, you put them in a jar, hex them, curse them. Like, there are certain people out there who's like, come on, everybody needs to get hexed, really? And then, as I said before, poverty mindset, you can develop that, being a hoarder or miser, you have stuff but you're holding on for dear life to it. The other thing I just want to talk about as far as the denial of shadow self and what that looks like is this thing where you need to be associated with white magic. You're very strongly in your stance about not wanting to do any other type of magic, or Any spells that is dark magic, but white magic, you're looking for things that say that. That's to me a denial of your shadow self. Very much afraid of the left hand path. It terrifies you again. And oddly enough, people who are super positive, even in the face of wrongdoings, there's no such thing as being, positive and just keeping a positive mindset. We'll just say that. But the reality of it is, we're not just one thing, and it's okay to sometimes express frustration. I'm not even gonna say anger, frustration. We got people walking around who feels like, being spiritual means being positive 100% all the time. Even like I said, somebody does something to you, someone steals from something from you, or they hurt you, or whatever the situation is, and you feel like you don't get a chance to have a reaction. You have to have a positive mindset. No, you're allowed to react, and if you're doing that so much, it would, to me, is representative of a denial of your shadow self. This need to keep up a facade. So again, so why again are we doing all this shadow work? Why is June doing it? She was perfectly lovely in her barely pleasurable sex life, but otherwise she was getting a great guy and they got along great. Everything should have been great, right? Well, no. June needs to heal from her past experiences, and it's affecting her going forward. She needs to heal from that. She needs emotional stability. Who doesn't need emotional stability? She's not really processing emotions, and when you're in a relationship, marriage, sex is a big part of it. Finances, sex, kids, not necessarily in that order. Those are real high priority issues that can happen in marriage, that can come up in marriage. That a lot of frustrations, anger, and joy, and everything else comes around. So less barriers to access spirit. And this is not necessarily just about June, our character, for this example, but for any of us. If you are dealing, especially when it's fear and shame, oh, that's a tough one, because that's going to get in the way of you practicing any magic, working spells, all that sort of stuff. It's going to come up, even if it has nothing to do with that. And then finally, it's freeing. It's a freeing experience. You're in the know. You know why your shadow self gets triggered. You know exactly what's going on. It's not about only preventing, it's about understanding what it is. You like I said, awareness changes everything, because now it's not a thing of you. You may not even find yourself reacting anymore, because as soon as those feelings bubble up, you can already extinguish them, because you already know what's going on. Extinguishing them is not pushing it back down. It's recognizing, it's being aware. That's just a part of who you are, because of those experiences in the past, or whatever has happened, or whatever thing that you formed in your shadow self, in your mind, in your psyche. But this is the now, and you get to choose how you react right now. You're more present. It's freeing. So, journaling, writing stories. If you're not a big writer, like I said, journaling. I'm gonna sell you on journaling. Um, to express your shadow self. You're definitely going to want to do that. I think tarot is great for that also. If you're someone who likes to draw, paint, crafts, whatever, make molds, whatever it is you want to do to represent that and get that out, and allow that to come up and be analyzed. That's great. So back to writing stories, write a character using that shadow self, that part of you that is, has those secret desires and fears and shame and whatever else. Yeah, let's write from that point of view, this character, this person, and really let them out. Let's draw something to you. Remember, this is not for someone else's eye. This is for you. That sort of pours that out. Draw something, sculpt something, whatever. Like I said, whatever craft you want to do. It's definitely creative type of thing you want to kind of use it as a sort of expression. It's not so much just about talking. You can talk though. Let's say do a voice memo on your phone, and just speak into it. Maybe go back and listen to it if you're not someone who does writing. Listen, I know some people, that's just not their thing. It slows them down. Typing or just handwriting. Voice memo. Use that. So yeah, again, there's different ways to go about this. I definitely understand that. I'm all about practicalities. I'm all about, make it make sense. That's my approach to all of this. Make it make sense to me. And then you got me. I'm all in. So for me, all this makes sense. This all makes sense. So the next video, I'm going to go a little bit deeper. This was actually, believe it or not, very high level. I kind of just ran through the questions on what June would be asking herself in that scenario. But I'll use a different example next time. And I think what I'll do is definitely dealing more so with the poverty mindset and learning to release that. Because I think a lot of us, there's a reason a lot of us have that. And it doesn't mean that we're all poor. It doesn't mean that we're anywhere near poverty. But yet, we're still holding on to that, no matter how much money we make and, how secure our finances are, it's still present. And it blocks us, from truly experiencing pleasure of having money and the stability, the emotional stability you get from financial stability. We're not being present in that. And, that can stress you and age you. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. Please, if you've enjoyed this video, I know this is probably a really long one, but there's no other way to do this than, make it long. Please like the video. I really appreciate it. That really helps me. And if you haven't already subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. I also would appreciate that. And yeah, I'll be back with more. Thanks.